Hi, I'm Jennifer Simmons with AIM. This is our CEO, Matt Greller. It's week 2 of the Indiana General Assembly's long legislative session. We're back with another legislative update. This week it was the State of the State address. Governor Holcomb had a lot to say. Matt, what are some of the highlights that we need to know about?
Yeah, the governor's speech, it seemed very, very positive. It seemed focused on talent attraction, quality of place, which are all things we really like to hear. Focused on his next level connectivity trails program is what it means for us, which we really support and appreciate. It focused on everything we thought it would. Teacher pay was a big topic. Funding the DCS was a big topic as well. And then he spent a considerable amount of time on the bias crimes legislation, which I think most of you have seen our statement at this point. Certainly supportive of that from a talent attraction and quality of place standpoint as well.
It wouldn't be a weekly legislative summary if we weren't talking about annexation. So, as we said last week, there was one bill filed at that time, but since then there have been several bills filed. And if you read this week's legislative summary attached to the email you received, what those bills are and how to access them. But Matt, give us the annexation highlights so far.
Well, so Senate Bill 94 was heard this week in the Senate Local Government Committee. It's a terrible bill. It really sets annexation back even further. It really takes away all the agreements we made with the stakeholders in 2015 and the annexation discussion then. Essentially what it does is it would require 51% of landowners in an annexed area or potentially annexed area to sign a petition saying that they were willing to come into the city or the town. And that holds true even for voluntary annexations. And in fact, with voluntary annexations, we, cities and towns, could not even petition or solicit the signatures. It would have to be truly a voluntary process. So lots of concerns here, from extension of services to economic development to smart growth in communities, things that are very, very concerning. And then sort of a theme that's throughout most of the annexation bills is a focus on waivers. We talked about this last week. Senate Bill 94 removes all waivers regardless of age. 2 years, 15 years, 30 years, however long they've been on the books, wipes them out. Other annexation bills put 15-year caps and do various other things, but the clear focus is on the waivers.
There's also an issue somewhat related, I guess, extraterritorial jurisdiction, eliminating that 2-mile buffer in most cases. There's a bill targeting that as well.
Yeah, Senate Bill 535, also sponsored by Senator Boots, does exactly what you said, Jennifer. It essentially eliminates or does eliminate the ability for us to regulate in certain circumstances in the 2-mile fringe, planning and zoning purposes, which obviously is very concerning, as you all know. Could have a real provide a real implication on parks and other things that we provide sometimes outside of the city or town limits. So that's a bill of significant concern at this point as well.
There's some good news. We have several AIM operational initiatives, and we're seeing some success on various bills. One of those this week is the controlled projects bill.
Yeah, so this really applies, I think, to a number of communities that are growing quickly. So particularly as it relates to roads, right? Right now there's a $25 million threshold that sends projects to referendum. As you know, it doesn't take very long to get to some of those levels when you're dealing with major road projects. So this removes the type of money that goes into these projects. It takes away the property tax component, makes it a little bit easier for us to get to the point where we want to go. We'll still work to adjust that $25 million limit and again make it easier for us to do those kinds of projects going forward.
And we did mention last week the change to the RDC statute as pertains to school board members, but probably worth mentioning again.
Yeah, so there are two bills. There's one in the Senate and one in the House. The Senate bill is the one that we like least, I think. It essentially replaces one of the existing 5 appointments to the Redevelopment Commission with a voting school board member. So it moves that advisory school board member to a voting position. That removes control from the town executive or the mayor, from the RDC. I think it really limits the effectiveness of an RDC and the economic development work that that entity does. The other bills in the House from Representative Cook, it adds a member to the redevelopment commission, so it would take it from 5 to 6 and adds a voting school board member, giving the town executive or the mayor tie-breaking voting authority. So that's a little bit better in that we still retain control, but still raises the issue of whether or not another jurisdiction should have a voting seat on a city or town proceeding. And that's a debate that we'll have to have through the legislative process.
All right, I think that's all for this week. Don't forget the bill tracking list that gives you a much more comprehensive view at all the bills our legislative team is tracking this session can be found at the bottom of your legislative summary. As always, don't forget to download your AIM Indiana mobile app at either Google Play or the iTunes App Store. That is free, and you need to accept push alerts so that you know when each legislative summary is out on Friday afternoon. We also have our legislative dinner coming up on March 20th. That's here in Indianapolis and free for all AIM members. So we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.